Welcome back to Western Kabuki. My name is Caleb. As always, I am joined by my co-hosts. Alex, how you doing, pal?
I mean, every day is a new horror, and a friend of mine said to me, Caroline Thompson, shout out.
Friend of the show,
was like,
which one?
She was like, hey, I'm really like crashing out hard. I'm spiraling. And I was like, look, I think things are going to be bad, but I don't think that things are going to be like looting in the streets bad in the next 4 years. Like, I don't think things are going, like, I don't think it's going to be like society falling apart bad. And her response,
no Mad Max yet.
Right. And her response was, I'm getting consoled by the most negative person I know about the world falling apart. We're totally cooked.
That's when you know. Yeah. No, you're just getting ahead. You're on the grind set. You're just getting ready.
Yeah. June, how are you doing this wonderful evening?
So everyone's really sad, but like this is an opportunity. The life that we live in now, you have to think bigger than just like civil rights, democracy, things functioning normally. You have to think about the profit. I am launching today Juniper Coin, Alex Goldman Coin, Bird Respecter Coin, and ultimately Western Kabuki Coin. All of these are dropping today, and we're going to the moon. We're gonna build together. We're gonna make it. It's okay. We're gonna be fine. I'm doing great.
We'll come back to that because I think we're going to use the Kabuki coin as a hypothetical here in a little bit. Until then, we are joined by Molly White of Citation Needed and Web3 is Going Great. You may remember her from our wonderful episode on the Bored Apes, the Chimposium, as we called it. That was one of my favorite episodes. So thanks for coming back, Molly. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Jesus Christ, we're talking about crypto and how bad it is and how much worse it's going to get. Okay, so just right off the top of the episode here, Molly, we're going to get into why and all the other things here as we go along. But what, just zoomed out, what does the future of crypto look like under the second Trump administration?
The future is bright for crypto, I think. The Wild West that we've always known and loved is going to become all the wilder. Donald Trump is promising to install a strategic Bitcoin reserve. He has installed some of
Wait a second. Wait, I did not. What does that mean? Wait a second.
But before we get into what is that, didn't El Salvador, if I remember correctly, didn't some country in South America do this exact thing that Trump wants to do now?
Yeah. El Salvador declared Bitcoin to be legal currency in, I think it was 2021.
Right.
I think it was just today that the news came out that they've decided that wasn't a great idea.
It took 4 years because I remember at the time they were like, "We're going in, market collapse," and they're like, "Well, we just lost all your taxpayer money.
You just gotta hold."
And ironically enough, they're actually doing okay now for the first time in a long time. It was not looking good in terms of their Bitcoin holdings for a while, but Bitcoin is at new highs because of the Trump election largely. And so they're actually doing all right there, but it turns out it's really hard to get like loans from the IMF when you decide to just put a ton of your country's money into Bitcoin.
That's just because the IMF is woke, dude. The famously woke IMF.
I guess nobody saw that coming. And so in order to get back into the good graces of the people who control the purse strings over the IMF, no more Bitcoin as legal tender, which I'm sure will be devastating to the like 5% of El Salvadorans who have used Bitcoin in the last year.
So a strategic, is it a strategic crypto reserve or a Bitcoin reserve? What is this and what does that look like?
Funny you mention the distinction because the crypto world is very upset right now about that. But
so right before we started, I wouldn't have guessed that. Caleb sent a Reddit thread of people pissed about this in the crypto subreddits.
Yeah.
I was stunned by that. I was like, there's no way. I thought they would like love this. Like it's like acknowledging this reality, but it's not. So why is it not?
Yeah, so initially Trump promised, this is back in July when he decided to like headline the Bitcoin conference as a sort of portent of things to come. He promised that he would establish what he called a Bitcoin digital stockpile, which a lot of the crypto world has started calling the Bitcoin strategic reserve because he announced that very shortly after RFK Jr. came out with much bigger plans about like buying. I mean, it was like
What the fuck do we care what RFK has to say about crypto?
Well, at the time he was still running for president. And so he and Trump were trying to sort of one up one another. And I think Trump sort of added his promise like as sort of a last minute addition because the Bitcoiners were so excited about RFK and he didn't want to get upstaged. But anyway, long story short is Trump has embraced the idea of potentially establishing some sort of stockpile of Bitcoin. And Bitcoiners really hoped that that might mean he would like go out and buy Bitcoin, which would then pump their bags.
They wanted him to like post based memes or something like Elon used to do with Doge before Doge became a real thing.
Precisely.
I guess. Yeah. I guess I hate acknowledging that, but that's kind of what happened. Yeah.
Can you just imagine if you're like 70 years old, you're ready to retire, you maybe already have retired, and then the government is completely upended and fucked over because Elon Musk convinced Donald Trump to buy Dogecoin as a strategic reserve. Like,
I have a great idea. We're going to put $100 billion into Doge. We're going to pump and we're going to dump.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's sort of the dream of the Bitcoiners. It has since sort of morphed into this crypto strategic reserve, which has absolutely horrified the Bitcoin maximalists, who are people who believe that Bitcoin is the one good cryptocurrency and everything else is terrible. They're so close. They are devastated about this. But it keeps sort of going back and forth. Like today, David Sachs, our new crypto czar, said at a press conference.
Is that real?
Yeah.
He actually,
yes.
God, oh my
and AI
God.
too.
If you don't know this yet, we live in the world where all the dumbest not just the bad guys won. I think everybody can intuit the fact that we live in the world that the bad guys won. The dumbest bad guys won.
All the people we spent like 8 years dunking on Twitter are now in the government.
That's truly the worst part. As I was like, these guys are dumb fucks with a lot of power, but like in the end, like they're not going to have any impact on my life outside of Twitter. And now look at us.
Yeah. Now every day is like your Job from the Old Testament being just fucking tortured.
Yeah, I think if you had told me like a year ago that Elon Musk would be in charge of a group called Doge based on a joke about the cryptocurrency, and not only that, but he would bring in a bunch of like college freshmen to have a coup.
Yeah, his blood boys are running the government.
I would
and
probably,
not only...
I'm pretty sure my head would explode.
and not only not only just college students, they're fucking groypers too. Like groypers are in the fucking government. What
the
is
most
this?
loser college students you can imagine.
They all got the broccoli haircut. Oh my God.
Some
what
broccoli-headed
is this?
fuck with a cracking voice is going to some civil servant of like 40 years and being like, hand over the keys, bro.
The worst thing is one of them went to my alma mater, and I distinctly remember how lame all the dudes in the computer science department were at like 19 years old. And I'm like, oh, good, that guy has my social security number now.
Super fucking cool.
Wait, so what did David Sachs say at this press conference? Sorry, you said David Sachs in the government, and I just I couldn't handle that.
Yeah, June disassociated.
Short circuited.
Okay, just, I wanted to say this at the top of the episode, but I forgot. Get a pillow to scream into as this episode continues, because I need
it
one.
helps. Yeah. So he used the words Bitcoin strategic reserve today, which brought new hope to the Bitcoiners that maybe all those shit coins would not be included in the stockpile. But ultimately, David Sachs has been instructed to like form a committee to consider the possibility of maybe establishing some sort of digital asset pile. So there's still very little in the way of details at this point.
Awesome.
I mean, I guess I'm not too surprised that these shitcoins are like being included in the government, considering there is Trump coin, there is Melania coin, there is that like priest coin.
That
Priest coin.
Yeah, the pastor from the inauguration.
Yeah, like he has a coin and he like went on Fox News. Like all of these fuckers are coming out with their like little shit coins and they're like, it's like normalized. Like I feel like 2 or 3 years ago, that was not like, if you came out and were like, yeah, I have butthole coin, everyone would be like, what the
Somebody
fuck?
with
Like,
a giant cane would have pulled you off stage while they were gonging you 2 years ago.
Yeah, like I don't know if you guys remember, but everyone was dunking on like NFTs and like the obvious scam involved with this, but like apparently not anymore. Apparently this is just like kind of a government thing now that like anyone can have a shitcoin.
And people know that they're scams too. That's the thing, is like people have not changed their mind in that department. They just have decided that scams are fine now.
Yeah, they call them meme coins. It's epic and funny. It's hot potato. It's a game that you play to see if you can get out before the rug is pulled. And that's the government now.
I feel like 2 years ago, everyone was talking about NFTs. And Molly, this might be me totally being misguided, but my impression of NFTs was always that they were like a way to launder cryptocurrency by making it kind of cute. Like, am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, I mean, I think NFTs were in a large part a way to appeal to sort of a mass audience by being like, look, and there's a picture, instead of just being like, this is an intangible piece of data with a dog's face sort of associated with it. You know, like it's hard for people to really wrap their heads around meme coins, whereas people I think were a little bit more able to be like, oh, it's a cute penguin, you know. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like NFTs had about the same promise as these meme coins. It was just a little bit easier to market.
The news just came out. There's a couple of stories that we're going to talk about that just happened today, because this is how fast things are happening. One of them was that, to back up a little bit, is it Mark Uyeda? Is that how you say his name? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Mark Uyeda was going to launch a task force to finally establish what.
I thought you were going to say he launched a cryptocurrency, and I was going to hang up
he
right
might,
then.
right? He might. He has not yet. He might.
That's tomorrow.
Yeah.
My sources are telling me that's tomorrow.
In a year from now, tomorrow.
The SEC is launching a task force that is ostensibly doing what the cryptocurrency industry has said that they've wanted for years, which is, I guess, clear and common sense regulation of the industry. Today, the SEC just announced that it's scaling back, aka firing and deleting its entire crypto regulation branch, which is like 50 lawyers that kind of go and I guess somehow do the minimal possible to regulate this stuff. And what do we know about Mark Uyeda, aside from the fact that he's a Republican who Joe Biden nominated for this position?
Yeah, so he's been a commissioner at the SEC for some time now. I mean, a handful of years. And he's the acting director while they wait for Trump to... I don't even know if Trump has formally nominated Paul Atkins yet, but everyone said it's going to be Paul Atkins. And so Uyeda is just sort of the second in command to Gary Gensler, who was the SEC chairman and crypto enemy number one. And Uyeda is part of sort of a faction of the SEC who has been more positive about cryptocurrencies and all of this supposed innovation that the industry is just waiting to unleash the second that they get I guess, favorable regulation. But, in reality, I think he's just sort of doing the crypto industry's bidding at this point and is fulfilling their wishes of potentially dropping a lot of the ongoing SEC cases against some of the biggest donors to the most recent political moment.
Yeah, I was hoping to talk about that a little bit later in the episode, but since it was brought up, one thing that I did not know, and I think we're going to talk about kind of the media's failings and how they've reported on all this, is that the crypto industry, despite being much smaller than some of the bigger industries that typically buy elections, spent over half. Is that correct? You said about half of all political spending in this last election cycle.
I don't know how I don't know how it stacks up to all political spending, but they spent a ton of money on the most recent election. They raised like $200 million. They spent like $130 million of it, which is insane for a very small industry. I mean, it was more than like healthcare and oil and like the big people.
Crypto
people think of like
outspent big oil. Think about
yeah,
that.
exactly. Like big crypto was
I
the
did
donor.
not know that. There's no fucking way. Like I knew these crypto freaks were like people in all these industries, like Silicon Valley and all of these like it's everywhere. Like I feel like it came out of nowhere, but I didn't know it had like that much buying power.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah,
my
they
God.
spent an absolute enormous amount of money, and they've already raised over $100 million for the midterms coming up in 2026. It's
Fucking
really
Christ.
dire. But
what did they spend that on?
They've mostly gotten what they paid for, I would say, because
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeda is right in line with what they've been wanting. And today there was that press conference about digital assets with David Sachs, and one of the Congress people who was speaking said something along the lines of how the crypto industry or the crypto related legislation that they're going to be working on is going to be a tripartisan effort between the Republicans, Democrats, and the crypto industry, which is exactly what you want.
They're just admitting it. They're just admitting that they're like kind of like a political faction that's just a major factor in running shit at this point. A tripolit. Well, come on.
Yeah, it was really gross.
Molly, what did they spend this on? You released a very good video and then the audio format of your newsletter on this, but where you go into this pretty extensively. But just really quickly, how did they spend this? Because it wasn't just all on getting Trump elected. They were going after down ballot candidates too.
It was actually mostly not on getting Trump elected. So the crypto super PACs didn't spend at all in the presidential races, but they spent very heavily in congressional races across the country, mostly in the general election, but there were some major primaries that they were involved with as well. And they basically were supporting any candidates who, kissed the ring and, said favorable things about crypto. And then they were also trying to oppose some of the more prominent crypto skeptics in both the House and the Senate. So they ended up spending in, I think, 40 states or close to it. I mean, they were in a ton of races.
Is this why Chuck Schumer sort of out of nowhere started being like, we need to invest in the future of crypto technology?
Yeah.
Because he like the leader of the, I guess now minority leader of the House, just all of a sudden was just like, yeah, we love crypto. We're going to invest and we're going to spread its influence. And everyone was just kind of like, where is this coming from?
What the fuck are you talking about, Chuck?
Yeah, what do you mean? No one cares about this on the left side of the party. What are you talking about?
Well, and I actually think that's a really important point, is that the crypto industry, in addition to all the spending on, congressional campaigns, they also had this huge sort of PR campaign that was very much directed at Congress people and their advisory teams, where they tried to make the case that crypto was a major issue for voters and that everyday people were going to be like potentially crossing party lines to vote for the other candidate if they had a favorable stance towards crypto. And they were like manufacturing polls to support this. I mean, it was like really sketchy stuff. But ultimately, I think they, to some extent, were able to push that narrative to people like Chuck Schumer. And to, I think, perhaps a greater extent, they were able to swing around such a big hammer with their like $100+ million war chest, that they were sort of threatening Congress people to say that, like, either you embrace crypto right now or we are going to get rid of you.
You used in your videos, Katie Porter was an example of being punished by this. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
For real? Okay, like in my mind, I didn't realize she shifted on this because she's like, of all people, more than anyone else on like in the Democratic Party, like kind of like a hawk. I feel like for economic issues like this.
So she did not shift
hawk.
on it. Right.
She didn't. Okay, good. Oh, what a relief. Okay.
Yeah, we still have Katie Porter wherever she is.
Yeah.
So they spent $10 million against Katie Porter in her California Senate race, claiming that she was this big, crypto skeptic, which, I mean, it does align somewhat with her policies, but she's never been like going out of her way to attack the crypto industry in specific.
To my knowledge, she really hasn't said very much about crypto at all. I tried to look at it.
She sort of signed on to a letter that Liz Warren wrote at one point, and that was like enough for them to claim that she was
to spend
hugely
$10 million against her.
Well, and I sort of went into this in my video, but what they did in the primaries is they picked a couple of really high-profile races. Katie Porter's being one, but it was also Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush,
where they two losses, sadly, two really good Congress people.
Right. And they sort of painted them as anti-crypto, even though, again, none of them had really, spent a ton of time on that issue. And then they made large contributions to ousting them in races that were already very tight races. In Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush's case, they were facing a huge amount of opposition spending from AIPAC as well. And so they sort of poured money into those to then claim victory when those candidates lost their elections. And then they really used that as sort of proof during the general elections of like, look at how powerful we are. If you don't get on board with us, we'll do the same thing to you. And I think that's what they're doing now as well, as they spend or as they raise money for the 2026 midterms, is basically they're saying, if you oppose any of the legislation we want to see passed, we're going to make sure that you don't get reelected in 2026.
I mean, that just goes to show how much like money is power in the United States, as we like all know at this point. And the way that like from how I understand these rug pulls and these like scam coins, and especially like not even just that, but like crypto, like Bitcoin works, is people basically very powerful individuals in this country have made a lot of money from all of the scam coins, from Bitcoin, all of this stuff. And like including among them like Elon Musk and Donald Trump. I think what was it when Donald Trump, his inauguration day, didn't he like double his net worths purely from cryptocurrency, from his Trump coin and other
You wrote an
crypto?
article about how that wasn't actually necessarily true, and that's what I wanted to use the Kabuki coin as the because you in your article about it was the Molly coins. Do you want to tell us what they got wrong and what that was with the Trump coin?
Yeah, so it's really challenging to sort of accurately value cryptocurrencies, especially when it comes to these meme coins or anything that's really illiquid, and most crypto is highly illiquid. But
meaning it's not easy to get rid of.
Yeah, there's not that many buyers for a lot of cryptocurrencies. And so if you hold a huge pile of tokens, it's going to be hard to sell them for what they're supposed to be worth on paper. But yeah, there was a lot of reporting around the time of the Trump meme coin, and this is something that happens constantly in the crypto world, to the point that I basically
about $27 is at the time of recording, by the way.
Yeah. So basically, anytime you hear the word market cap when it comes to crypto, you should be enormously skeptical, because what people do is they take the price of the token. So in this case, $27. That's the price of one Trump token right now. And then they multiply it either by the total number of tokens in circulation, or in very egregious cases, and that's what people were doing with the Trump token, by the total future number of tokens that ever will exist. And so people were saying that Trump was that Trump was worth, at this very moment, $27 billion, because in 3 years there will be 1 billion Trump tokens on the market.
I see. So it's like highly theoretical, essentially.
Yeah.
It's not even really theoretical, because we can say pretty confidently that there isn't $27 billion in the Trump token market. People are just not spending that amount of money. And as soon as you try to dump, even a small number of Trump tokens, you see the price crash, which is what happened when the Melania token launched shortly after the Trump token. That
one is worth $1.64 as of time of recording.
Melania, we can clearly show how much each other are worth. Melania, I'm sorry, you gotta
build
Trump
your
worth.
Lording this over her.
Yeah,
he I'm worth
is.
27 times what you're worth.
Your coin is small.
I love you, but you're not worth shit. Sorry, you're not worth a damn thing.
That's called fully diluted valuation.
Correct.
Is that
yes.
model?
So basically the idea is that, at some point in the future, when all 1 billion tokens are in existence and circulating in the market, they believe that they will still be, purchasable at this amount, which is highly dubious.
Right. That's crazy, because Bitcoin has been around for at least 2 decades, almost 2 decades. There's not all the Bitcoin that will exist does not currently exist. So that's an insane projection. That's just we
have no idea
false
what the
claim,
price is
basically.
Be. The whole thing about crypto markets is they're famously very volatile, and that's just part of the game that you play. It's the hot potato thing that we were talking about before. So that doesn't make any sense. So why do you think that the media is so confident in using FDV or why? Before we get to your thought experiment that you used in your article, which was very good, what is it about the media that you think why do they get this wrong so much? Why does the media suck so bad at covering crypto?
The endless question.
I ask myself this every day. I think it's partly that big numbers are really sexy, and headlines about how Trump has. It wasn't even doubled his net worth.
The damn Cheeto doubled his net worth.
It was people were saying 80% of Trump's net worth is in crypto right now, or something like that. It was completely absurd, even on its face. But those are really exciting headlines.
From respectable publications and journalists that I otherwise read, and it makes you think, what the fuck else are you wrong about? That's just complete bullshit.
Yeah. So, tell me about that. I feel that often. There's a word for that. Is it the gel something paradox? Anyway. But yeah, I think it's partly just the sort of allure of big numbers. And then I think it's just that a lot of journalists don't understand crypto very well. A lot of the people who are writing about crypto in sort of mainstream publications are covering, not just crypto, but finance, or they do tech, or they do politics. And so they have this much wider beat, and it doesn't give them much time to focus on the crypto world. And so when someone tells them that, the fully diluted valuation of this token is X, they just print it without much context or skepticism. So I think it's kind of just a mix of things. It's sort of ignorance and then just, wanting to have a catchy headline.
Are there reporters, aside from yourself, obviously, that you trust as in the crypto space? People that you'd be like, yeah, they're solid, and I would recommend reading them. Yeah,
there are definitely some. Jacob Silverman is really good on crypto. David Gerard is good on crypto. Nick Day is a reporter at CoinDesk, actually, which is a crypto media outlet, and crypto media outlets are not known for their high quality reporting, but they do have a handful of very good reporters, and Nick Day is one of them. So yeah, there are definitely people out there who know what they're talking about, I would say. But unfortunately, I don't think it's the majority of people writing on crypto.
So you're telling me that the Everything app replies is not a great place to look for advice on crypto? Not a good call.
If you do the opposite of what they say, I think you have a fighting chance.
It's like following exactly what Nancy Pelosi does in the stock market. Do the exact opposite of what these freaks tell you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you walk us through your Molly coin experiment to explain FDV a little bit?
Yeah. So one thing I also wrote about in that piece is that market caps are fake in crypto in a way that they're not really. I mean, market caps are fake everywhere to some extent. You know, like if you tried to sell off every share of Apple stock, it would have some effect on the price. Like you would not be able to cash out them. Yeah, you would not be able to cash out for the total market cap. And so like all market caps are fake to some extent, but crypto market caps are really fake because so the example that I give in my piece is, say that I create Molly coin today, or we can say Kabuki coin for the sake of this podcast.
Thank you.
And your branding.
That.
Thank you. I was so confused until you said that.
Well, how else are we going to pump Kabuki coin?
Yeah. We'll talk about the rug pull after the recording stops.
Right. So say that I create Kabuki coin and I decide, okay, there's going to be 1 billion Kabuki coin in circulation because I can just like pick a number and that's a nice round number. And then I convince someone to give me $1 for 1 Kabuki coin. Right off the bat, I have a token with a $1 billion market cap because the way that they establish market cap is the going price for the token, which I have just caused to be $1 because that's the only sale that has ever happened.
Can I ask a stupid question before we continue?
Yeah.
Who determines it's whoever makes the coin determines the initial launch price? Is that how it works? It's kind of like when you if you're a company that goes public, you have to get like a valuation. But is this just something that I can say Kabuki coin is worth $1 and when it might actually be worth negative money?
They're usually worth negative money. Yeah, so it's a little bit messy, and that can be why tokens can be so volatile right at launch, is there sort of isn't really a price in a lot of cases, and there are things that people do to sort of try to guide the price to being a certain amount, but generally speaking, the price of a cryptocurrency is what someone has paid for it. And so, in this case, if someone pays me $1 for the Molly coin,
the 4 of us are going to buy a bunch of it at first to set the price.
Yeah, right. Okay. Or, sort of seed it with some amount of liquidity or, there's various ways that it happens. But generally speaking, the price is all over the place early on because people are sort of setting the price in a way. But to go back to the example, so, if someone gives me $1 for 1 Molly coin, I now have Kabuki coin. I now have my billion Kabuki coins with a market cap of $1 billion, even though only $1 has ever traded hands in that particular market.
We're rich guys.
Which is already like, okay, so you can kind of understand how market caps are fake. But then you can actually take it even further in the crypto world in a way that you often sort of can't in traditional finance, which is that most people are not paying dollars for Kabuki coin or any other meme coin. They're paying with some other cryptocurrency.
Yeah, Melania coin.
Right, Melania coin.
You got to dump it somewhere, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
it's
still
worth
trying to
shit these days.
All the Hawk coin I got a couple months ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
God. Hawk. Yeah, no. Hawk Tua shouts out.
And so in those cases, people are not giving me $1 for 1 Kabuki coin. They're usually giving me like $1 worth of Ethereum for 1 Kabuki coin. And so, at that point, you have this sort of compounding error where not only are you assuming that there is $1 in circulation for every Ethereum token or for every dollar's worth of Ethereum tokens, you're then assuming that there are enough Ethereum or dollars in circulation for those Ethereum to back the Kabuki coin. And it sort of compounds through that way where you're basically printing money out of thin air in a way because there is no dollar there. You're just using this crypto token. And this can compound somewhat infinitely throughout the crypto world, creating these huge market caps of, however many trillions of dollars people say that the crypto industry is worth, when in reality, the amount of like dollars and it's not just dollars, I mean, yen and euros and sort of real fiat currency that's actually floating around in there is probably considerably smaller. And so, these errors become magnitudes larger as a result of the way crypto trades actually work.
This genuinely reminds me of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia when they try and make their own Patty's Bucks or whatever it was, their own money during the recession. I mean, that's genuine. This sounds like the money moves around in a circle.
Yeah. And it is very much this attempt to sort of create value out of thin air. And it's honestly funny to hear Trump talk about it, because I think he realizes that, and he says things once in a while that reveal that. Back around the time he spoke at the Bitcoin conference, someone was asking him about Bitcoin not long after, and he made some sort of glib remark about how we could just create some Bitcoin and pay off the national debt. And like half of the crypto world was like, haha, he's so funny, and half of the crypto world was like, wait a minute, like, does he not understand Bitcoin? Could it be?
Imagine being like one of the few true believers of like the original intended purpose of Bitcoin and watching like the last 3 years play out. Like, you would probably be losing your fucking mind, because what it is today. So. Yeah, I guess. Well, maybe at the end of the day, there's not too many true believers in like the like actual use case of it, and I think
that all had to have died in 2022 with Sam Bankman-Fried and his whole. I mean, that collapse, to anybody who really thought that this could have any real purpose besides stealing money from hoopleheads, like that has to have collapsed by this point.
You would think, but I would say that the crypto world has a very unique ability to disown anything bad that happens as sort of not being the real crypto. So like FTX wasn't crypto. FTX was actually just a traditional financial institution wrapped in sort of crypto language. That's what you hear a lot. And true Bitcoiners would never use something like FTX. And so, and it happens every single time something like this happens. It's like, oh, well, that's not real Bitcoin. Real Bitcoiners, have their seed phrase buried in the backyard, engraved on a sheet of steel.
I guess I just don't understand. It's like we've seen this market kind of cave in on itself before. Like, eventually, if you're just paying one another and getting richer with fake money, like, the bill comes due, doesn't it? Like, what happens?
Well, that's sort of the problem, is that does happen frequently in the crypto world. And every time it happens, it's worse than the time before, where the price has gotten higher, more people have bought in, more people have been convinced that this is actually a legitimate way to make money or, get financial freedom or whatever the crypto world is promising them. And then it falls even harder than the last time. Which is something that really worried me during the 2022 collapse is, people were like, oh, Bitcoin's dead, crypto's dead, everyone thinks it's dumb,
It felt like it. I was one of those people. I was saying that at that time, yeah.
Yeah, on this podcast, I think we called, that was it. With Ed,
we literally did.
FTX episodes with Ed Zitron, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that was very much the common belief. And people were talking to me and they're like, why are you even covering crypto anymore? Like, why don't you just go talk about how dumb AI is? And I was like, I don't think this is over.
It's like Pet Cemetery. It's like, it's back and it's worse.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's 100% true. And like, without some external force that will stop this cycle from continuing, I think we're sort of doomed to repeat it, and it's going to be worse and worse every time.
And especially this time that it literally, like, crypto has an institutional inside the government pull at this point. Like, it's just inevitable.
That was one of the things I was going to say. I didn't want to cut you off on it, but like, 2022 happened and it was bad, but really the only people that got hurt by that were people who whatever held crypto or something.
Right. As
this administration rushes at fucking breakneck pace to integrate crypto into our government and every
treasury.
Possible aspect, they're trying to put the fucking treasury on blockchain. I don't really understand what that
they don't
means.
Either.
I tried to read about that. I'm like, what the fuck does this even mean? But like, if the next time that this collapses, and it will, because it always does, that's why every like 6 months the suicide hotline number is posted stickied on the Bitcoin subreddit or whatever. This will happen again. And now as we integrate this into our government, what does that look like the next time it collapses? When the bill comes due, as Alex said.
Yeah, that is a great question. So, for a while when things fell apart in 2022, there was this brief flicker of like, maybe they'll actually do something about this. And Congress people were like, I can't believe that this happened. We must make sure this never happens again.
Well, that was even Sam Bankman-Fried's whole thing was he really wanted to be like the sensible guy who's like, oh, I want crypto to be regulated. I'm the nice good boy of crypto or whatever.
So that's a great point, actually. When you hear the crypto industry right now saying that they want clear, sensible regulation, it's important to remember that that is exactly what Sam Bankman-Fried was saying in 2021.
And none of it fucking happened when it collapsed 2 years ago.
But it's because they don't actually want clear, sensible regulation. They want regulations that enable them to do what it is that they have always wanted to do, which is, act with impunity, ignore any financial regulations, roll back any consumer protections that might exist, such as they are. And that's very much what, the same Congress people who are talking about preventing FTX from ever happening again are now signing on to, is not only are we not going to have more regulations than we had in 2022 that, didn't prevent FTX from collapsing, we're not going to even have those regulations if, in the next couple of months, likely.
I'm really glad that you brought it to like they don't want this. They want like this is like a whole deregulation basically for us. This goes hand in hand with the sort of like Doge, at least from my perspective, the implementation of crypto goes hand in hand with the complete destruction of like normal government functions. And its theoretical implementation in the treasury, putting like the treasury on the blockchain, which I guess from what you said, it doesn't even make any fucking sense. But crypto is going to be, at least from my perspective, I am not like a crypto wizard. I just know what looks like bullshit. But the way that like the right is using crypto right now seems to be hand in hand with deregulation entirely, and like kind of destroying the government, which I assume is what their overall goal is with this.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the goal is really to make a lot of money. And the way to make a lot of money in crypto is to not deal with the regulations that the rest of the financial world has to deal with. And that has always been the strength of the crypto industry is, they're not making money because crypto is so innovative and because it is so, it's this masterpiece of financial engineering or anything like that. It's because they just ignore the regulations that the rest of the financial world has to abide by. And so they're able to be quicker or, slightly more lucrative because they're not paying people to like, check your ID like a bank would do, and they're just sort of letting people have a free-for-all. And so that's what they really want.
It's kind of the opposite, where they've said like, oh, we need our own special rules. And they're kind of telling on themselves a little bit in the sense that like we can't compete in the same way that other financial markets could, because
that's 100% true. The words out of the crypto industry over the past year or two under the Biden administration and under an SEC that was trying to enforce securities regulations against the crypto industry was that you're going to kill crypto. You're going to drive us out of the United States. We cannot operate under your regulations, which was like,
God, I wish.
If we can't steal, we won't exist.
I mean, that was 100% it. They were plainly saying like, you were going to put us out of business if you make us play by the same rules. And I was like, wow, that's really honest.
Fucking stupidest country in the world, man.
Yeah, 100%. But so I think it's really important to keep that in mind when they're talking about these like clear, sensible regulations. Is like, it's not regulation that they want. They want sort of the like governmental stamp of approval to the extent that it will legitimize cryptocurrency for people who might be, slow to get in on it, I guess. But they do not want consumer protections. They do not want the same types of oversight or auditing requirements or anything that goes into, the stock market or other types of asset, exchanges in the United States.
And is the inability or the unwillingness to regulate these markets by Congress, is it a partisan thing? Is it like, I have two questions. One, is it partisan? And two, is it because Congress people simply don't understand technology? Or is it because the lobbying is so successful that they are not deliberately not doing it. And I feel like it could possibly be a combination of the two.
Yeah, probably. I mean, up until so the stance of the securities regulators prior to all of them getting fired was that the existing laws on the books to do with securities and commodities for the small number of cryptos that were considered to be commodities were sufficient to regulate the industry. And, you know, even though those laws were written in like the 1930s, you know, they were written in such a way that they were supposed to be broad enough to apply to a very, you know, broad range of assets. And that's why, you know, those same laws still apply to high frequency trading and, you know, the sort of more modern things that have come along since the 1930s. And the idea that, you know, there would even need to be congressional intervention to regulate the crypto industry was very much something that came out of the crypto industry, not out of the regulators. But the you know, the industry has basically said that these, and they've said the same thing that pretty much every technology company says when they come up with something, is that we are so innovative that we cannot play by the previous rules. We need our own special rules, which will be essentially carve-outs or regulatory sandboxes or, you know, exceptions to consumer protections so that we can innovate in peace, basically, and also make billions of dollars while we're doing it. And so I think that's mostly been the problem, is sort of this question of, is new legislation even needed? And then to the extent that it is needed, there have been certainly issues within Congress, both on the understanding side of things and on just coming to any sort of agreement, because we have people who are essentially working for the crypto industry on the one hand, and then there are people who want, you know, sensible regulation or consumer protection or anything like that. And those two things are pretty much at direct odds.
So did I miss something? In the last 20 years, does crypto actually, did it innovate anything? Did Bitcoin fix anything that like was an issue in society before, other than making money? Like that's all I understand about crypto, is that you can make money with it. Is there an actual use case with crypto?
Well, I will say the ransomware operators were having a really tough time with payments, and that has been totally solved.
Scams have never been easier.
Yeah, booming ransomware industry right now.
Good way to pay for illegal things, like if you need to buy a hitman or
yeah, I bought some DMT off the dark web one time.
The thing is, like, it
so
was
great for that.
That's the thing, is like it was really good for that, and like I would argue that that's actually kind of a use case. Like there are times when you should be able to buy things that maybe the government doesn't 100% like.
Yeah, I buy
totally agree,
albuterol inhalers off of a website that ships them to me from Canada.
Right, and like, you know,
here. Yeah.
Like when the government decides that like abortion pills are going to be illegal, or like estrogen, or all of these different things, like there's a pretty reasonable argument for some sort of like gray market there.
100%.
The problem is that crypto is actually not the most, it's not a great tool for that in a lot of cases, certainly the majority of cryptocurrencies, because of how traceable they are. You know, Bitcoin and ETH and all those sort of popular cryptocurrencies, the sort of core feature is that every transaction is permanently recorded on a public ledger, meaning that if you know, and you have a wallet address, which is not your name, it's just like a string of characters. And so ideally, your wallet address will never be linked to you. But if it is, and that does happen pretty often through various intentional and unintentional ways, every transaction you've ever made is public. And you buying abortion pills on the dark web or DMT or whatever it might, a hitman, even if it was 10 years ago, suddenly becomes legible to whoever's looking and whoever knows that
what
that's
I meant
you.
to say is I did not buy
Right.
DMT.
You cut out when you said not. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So that's actually maybe an aside here, but is there an actual good way? Just because, you know, you brought up amazing points where abortion and estrogen and testosterone for trans people in particular are likely I mean, they might be regulated. Is there something that is better than crypto for that sort of thing? Because I'm curious, and I know a lot of people in our audience is genuinely very probably curious about that sort of thing.
Yeah,
and I don't know.
I mean, there is still cash. That's
There
obviously
is.
challenging if you are not standing next to the person that you are buying, whatever it might be from. There are some cryptocurrencies that are better for privacy than some of the big names. And those tend to be the ones that are used for ransomware and things like that as well. And so, and they are the ones that under our like regulated crypto worlds are likely to get the short end of the stick, I suspect. It's unfortunately very challenging to sort of have cryptocurrencies that are like usable for the good things and not also the really, really bad things. It's kind of the sort of constant issue with, sort of private money pretty much. And so, the same when you see the government trying to crack down on like, ransomware or like funding North Korea or, online dark web marketplaces that are letting you hire hitmen, those tend to be the same cryptocurrencies that are, best used for untraceable purchases.
Gotcha.
Am I right, though, to understand that if I do hire a hitman, I can just appeal to libertarians and then Trump will pardon me?
Yeah, they will spend 10 years asking various presidential candidates to pardon you for...
Yeah, if your mom is really nice to Donald Trump, you can get away with it.
I could not fucking believe that when, what's his name? Ulbricht? Ross Ulbricht. He fucking, I don't know, that was like day 2 of Trump's presidency, and they're like, the Silk Road guy, we'll pardon him. I was
first order of business.
Could not fucking believe that. I don't know. That was like a sign of things to come. Not necessarily that I think he should specifically be punished for just being a middleman, I guess, for drugs. Which, at least in my defense, that's all. I don't really know the specific reason why he's in jail. I assume it's a little bit more than just he was a middleman for like crypto drugs.
Yeah, but, I mean, so it is. I like. And this is one of those things where, same as how I say things about like crypto can be good for buying estrogen on the dark net. Like I do have some sympathies with sort of like the ideological end of crypto in some cases.
Yeah.
Ross Ulbricht was sent to prison over the Silk Road, which was like the first or one of the first big crypto dark web marketplaces where you could buy heroin and, hire a hitman and buy weed.
That is where I explicitly did not buy DMT.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it was this sort of, marketplace for everything that you couldn't buy legally. And Ulbricht ended up going to jail largely over his role in running it, but he was sentenced almost as though he had been supplying the drugs. And that's what a lot of the libertarians were really up in arms about, is that they felt like he should not be serving. He was sentenced to 2 life sentences in prison plus like 40 years or something weird like that.
He was in there for like 11 years or something?
He served 11 years.
I mean, I don't know. That seems kind of...
That's fair.
Right.
Yeah, no, and I sort of feel the same way that like, he was obviously running this illicit marketplace and, enabling drug transactions and stuff like that. But they did sort of come down with a full force of the drug war against him.
Which I think most of us probably here think most drugs should be decriminalized.
Right.
I hate when libertarians kind of are low-key cooking on certain things.
God, they have a point.
Yeah.
But I mean, not only that, it was also the fact that like the actual case against him was built by a bunch of people who ended up going to jail for stealing while they were working on the investigation. A bunch of people in the FBI got sentenced to prison for stealing Bitcoin during the investigation. So there was a lot like the government is no saint here.
Right. It was incredibly messy in that sense. And then there's the hitman end of it as well, which is that Ulbricht, at least allegedly, tried to have like 5 people killed who might have exposed his role in running the Silk Road through hiring hitmen that I think ultimately just went to the government and, tattled basically.
That's what seems like what always happened, because there was the I don't know how familiar you guys are with this band, but it was the singer of As I Lay Dying bought a hitman off the Silk Road and immediately got caught. And it's just like, do hitmen actually exist, or are these just like narcs and people who steal
basically it's just the FBI on the other end?
Yeah.
But yeah, so like there was some portion of his sentence that was likely related to the fact that he tried to have a bunch of people killed. But it was kind of this messy thing where like he wasn't actually prosecuted for that because he'd just gotten 2 life sentences in prison. And so they were like, what's the point of prosecuting him for this if, you know, he's going to be spending more than his life in prison already? And so there's sort of like some loose ends on the case that are a little bit weird. And the whole thing is kind of bonkers, honestly.
Yeah. Okay. I have kind of a 2-parter question for you, Molly, as we kind of wind this down. Is there any, on your beat, not necessarily just crypto, but Web3, whatever, anything on your beat that you cover that makes you feel optimistic? And then the second part to this question, and of all the other things that are obviously very fucking terrible that we've talked about, is there anything that the average person or our listeners could do to kind of fight back, or at least what they could look for to stay aware? What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. So there are some things that make me feel optimistic in sort of my own weird way of being optimistic. One of them is that the cryptocurrency industry is about to get everything that they could have wanted in terms of regulation, and they're still going to, they basically won't have any excuses left, I think, because in the past... That's
kind of the whole through line for this entire administration is the dog caught the fucking car.
Yeah,
let's see
exactly.
what happens.
It's a great way to put it. Yeah.
That's 100% true. Like, they have spent the past 18 years or whatever that we've had various cryptocurrencies basically saying that the reason crypto hasn't amounted to anything is because the big bad United States hasn't allowed them to innovate. And so now when they get everything that they want, I think it will expose some of those charades for what they are, which is that crypto actually just is not that useful for most of the things that people in the crypto world want you to think it's useful for. I wish that we didn't have to go through the pain and suffering that will cause, but it will be interesting to watch. The other thing I think is going to be interesting is the clash between, and June kind of alluded to this a little bit, but the clash between the sort of ideological end of crypto, or at least the people who claim to be ideological, which is, I think, probably a larger group than the actual ideologues, and what the crypto industry has been doing. Because the crypto industry was sort of able to convince the more ideological people who believe in, you know, private transactions and low government interference or surveillance of your money and all of that kind of thing. They were able to sort of convince them that they were fighting for them too, which is wild because, like, in no other world do you see lobbyists spending hundreds of millions of dollars and going like, yeah, I'm fighting for you, the little guy. And people are like, thank you, big pharma. You know, like that just doesn't happen.
Like the cigarette, like tobacco industry. Like, we don't, I don't really know about
Smoke
that
up, little buddy. We got you.
Yeah, exactly. But like, that was what was happening in the crypto world. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, you think that the Winklevoss twins are like hoping that you two were gonna make it? Like, that's not...
We'll go to the moon together. They truly believe it. Yeah.
And so I think we're going to see some rifts start to form in that sense, where, you know, the sort of everyday people in the crypto world realize that the billionaires aren't on their side, which will be, if nothing else, interesting to watch, I suppose.
And endlessly, I endlessly wonder how it takes so many people so long to understand that. Like, why do we have to go through this to understand that billionaires are not on your side? I'll never, like, I try to like be understanding of different people's perspectives and like politics, but like this one gets me. How do you? Yeah, it's obvious. It's like the man with the twirling mustache is, of course, the enemy. What's going on here?
Right.
What are you confused about?
Yeah.
I guess I just feel like there's been an argument for accelerationism just to show people how bad everything's going to get. And I just haven't seen anybody open their eyes.
That's the thing is like
things are
watching
fucking terrible.
Yeah, watching what's been happening, and like we have this situation where like the guys who are in power now are doing everything that they said the deep state was doing.
Yeah.
And the people who are mad about the deep state are like, yay, they're fixing it. And it's
We
like,
literally have a foreign billionaire controlling the government with his blood boys, and they're like, actually, it's based.
yeah. And so at this point, I'm kind of like, does accelerationism even exist? Like, at what point are these people going to be like, wait a minute, something's going on here?
I did just want to circle back to the second part of that question is if there's anything that you think people should be doing, looking out for, something they can do to push back, something even just being aware of, what's something that just our listeners, the average person, could be doing in the next 4 years?
Should we create our own blood boys?
We need to leave people with a tiny bit of hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think in terms of that, I mean, I think the biggest thing, one of the biggest lessons that we are again learning over and over and over again is how bad money is in politics. And so, like, I've tried to really bang the drum throughout my reporting on the crypto lobby is that, like, this is not a crypto-specific problem. This is an everything problem that, like, it doesn't really matter what industry is able to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on politics. It's obviously this really corrupting, sort of rotting force in our democracy, as we're seeing. And so like supporting any attempts to get money out of politics is always, my sort of white whale. Not the most sort of immediately achievable thing, especially given the recent political changes.
And the Supreme Court and Citizens United.
Yeah, I was going
Right.
to say this is an issue. I'm 29. That's an issue I've been focusing on since I was 14. I
Yep.
don't know. Like, I wish, but holy fuck, it feels impossible at this point.
Well,
Not to be immediately doomer. I really do believe one day things will
you're
get
really
better.
fucking up the vibe. I was thinking like we might have some little thing where we can like all focus on and feel some hope for.
So actually, I will give you one little shard of hope when it comes to that, which is that getting money out of politics is actually a very popular thing. So like my home state is Maine, and during the last election, they ran a ballot initiative basically about limiting how much spending in politics is allowed, and it got like 75% of the vote. And so like I actually think it's a lot more achievable than people realize. But it's just sort of a question of, getting to that point.
Yeah.
Right.
As-
Okay. That's good. I feel good about that. That makes me feel
That's good.
good inside. Yeah. Wait.
Yeah, that
I'm
was
putting
my
the
sort of
gun
like
down.
that was my sort of like moment in the darkness of this election was like, oh, well, at least that did pretty well.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, I think, people should just be very cautious about fintech in general right now. Things are about to get really weird, and the types of legislation that the crypto industry is pushing for is likely to have pretty broad impacts on the financial world beyond crypto, in terms of what, fintechs are allowed to do with your money and sort of the requirements on custody and all sorts of things there. And so just sort of being aware of what you're doing with your money and, taking a little bit more skepticism when it comes to tech billionaires telling you that your money is safe with them, I think is probably a wise move going forward.
Are you telling me that when Visa partners with Twitter coming up in a couple months that I should not
Don't
put
give
my
your
money
credit card
in
number
a
to Elon
Twitter
Musk?
bank account?
Yeah. I mean, you do you, I guess. if you want to fund Elon Musk's most recent endeavors, go for it. But I would not expect that, the FDIC will be there to bail you out when the collapse comes, I guess. Whether or not the FDIC will be there at all is perhaps another question. But
Surely all of these institutions will be just as powerful as they were before.
yeah, they will stand strong.
Yeah.
Molly, what would you like to plug for everybody?
My newsletter is citationneeded.news. I also run web3isgoinggreat.com, which tracks all of the wonderful innovations in the cryptocurrency world, if you want to stay abreast of that. And both of those websites link to all of my social media and everything else.
I do love your work, Molly, but every time I open up Web3 is going great, every time there's something like I just want to beat my head against the wall. Every time. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Web3 was going great. Felt a lot better to watch like maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
The crypto world has this really unique way of like generating headlines that could not possibly be real. It's like that can't have just happened, and yet it happens on a basically
the top
a
thing on
basis.
Web3 is going great. It was the one I was going to use as an example when I was opened it up before we got on the call today. Was a guy crunched the numbers and was like, "Hey, Coinbase allows $300 million a year of fraud against their customers."
Oh,
Yep.
Jesus.
300 million a year. Yeah. So, and then, there's all kinds of stuff like that. If you want to keep abreast of this, you should. Molly does great work. We'll link all of that in the show description.
Check out both. Both are great. Citations needed.
God, I feel like this hour
even
just
if it's a bummer,
Yeah.
it's like
through.
good to go into the world with clear eyes.
That's how I feel genuinely. It's like it fucking sucks, but if I know if I look away, I'll feel worse, I'll feel worse if I don't know what is going on in this world.
Also, once in a while, like someone in the crypto world will just step on a rake in like a really embarrassing way, and I get to cover that too, which is like my little light in the darkness.
Others, especially the ruling class's pain and suffering is our joy.
Exactly.
Is what it is.
I take it where I can find it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Molly, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
Thank
so
you for
much.
having me.
Genuinely a pleasure. Okay.
Do we have anything to plug?
Oh yeah, do we have anything to plug? What do we got going on?
But nothing. Just enjoying each other's company.
Company.
Enjoy people's company.
We
is
still
what
do
I
have.
plug.
I think we have like 10 tickets are still available for the Chicago show. I haven't
Right.
looked. There's like 10 or fewer tickets available March 13th at the Lincoln Lodge. You can get those at wkchicago.brownpapertickets.com. There's just a few left. So we've got that. Trying to think. I'm actually driving. I'm leaving the day after tomorrow to drive. I decided for a fun road trip to go visit Ed and Arif for my 60-minute drill show. That'll be a lot of fun. Ed Zitron, you know him, you love him. He's doing good things, so that'll be fun. I'm trying to think of what else we got going on.
I think that's mostly it at the moment.